Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are joining us. Thank you so much for tuning in today to listen to us talk about social media. We've been talking about it for about 20 minutes in our prep area and having an awesome conversation. We just almost forgot to go live because we had so many great insights we were already throwing back and forth. So while you're all joining, let us know in the chat where you're joining from and how you heard about today's webinar. If you heard about it from social media, or if you heard about it from somewhere else, email or I don't know, carrier pigeon, where you heard about it from. We want to know. I'd love to see how many actually heard about it from social media itself. So I'm Samantha Russell. I'm going to go ahead and let you know we are recording this today. Just some general housekeeping. The number one question that we are asked for every webinar we give is, drum roll please, will this be recorded and can you send it to me? And the answer is yes and yes. So if you get a phone call, you got to deal with a client, you have a sick kid at home, whatever it is, we will send you the recording. Do not worry about that. But the main reason why we want you to be here live is so that you can ask us questions. So we don't have a very formal presentation for you today. We have just so much great insight and intel from two powerhouses on social media, Thomas Kopelman and Derek Notman, who I'm going to introduce here in just a second. And this is your opportunity to pick both of their brains, to ask any question that you want, thinking about how you as a financial advisor or someone working for an advisory firm can use social media for growth, because these two gentlemen have shown that, yes, it really does drive results. So just two other housekeeping items. If you have any questions that you only want us, the panelists, to see, that should go in the Q&A box. However, if you just want to make a comment or say something or ask a question of everybody, everybody in the community who's on today can see, that should go in the chat. So that's where any kind of feedback should go. And again, we just want to know, how did you hear about today's session? Did you hear about it from social media, or did you hear about it from some other way? So while you're all answering, I'll just get to introductions. I'm Samantha Russell, the Chief Evangelist here at FMG. If we are not connected on social media yet, please, please, please add me to Twitter and LinkedIn. Every single day, I share a quick marketing tip that you can use to help you grow your business. And if you have any questions after today's session, feel free to email me, srussell@fmgsuite.com. Joining me is Derek Notman. If you are on LinkedIn as an advisor, you may recognize Derek's face. Welcome, Derek. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here. Stoked to be part of this conversation. I've been an advisor since 2006 and really found social media maybe 2013 when I went virtual. And yeah, just, I have my own RIA. I also have a couple other businesses that serve advisors, and just happy that we get to nerd out on social media today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Thomas. Thank you, Thomas, for being here. Tell us a little bit about you.
Thanks for having me. Super excited about this. Probably one of my favorite things to talk about at this point. But my name is Thomas Kopelman. I am the co-founder of All Street Wealth. It's a RIA serving pretty high income millennial business owners or those with equity comp. Only been an advisor now coming on year 6, but I've been creating on social for about 2.5 years, I would say, going pretty head down and trying to grow our entire firm through social.
That is awesome. So I know we've gotten to talk offline about a lot of the strategies that have worked for both of you. I thought rather than make people wait till the end for results, we would share some of those success stories right up front. So Derek, you were kind enough to share these screenshots with me ahead of time, just some examples of the types of leads or messages that you get in your own inbox. So do you want to talk a little bit about these?
These are a result of just creating content and being active on LinkedIn, which is the platform I chose to double down on. And as you can see here, this first example on the left, this is an email I got completely unsolicited, just being very active on social media. And it's funny, if you read this, you can see like they looked at me on LinkedIn, they trolled me, right? It's one of this, what I refer to as creepers, right? They're there, they don't comment or anything, but they're
The
watching.
lurkers, yeah.
The lurkers, right? They're there. Listen to me on a podcast, and they obviously checked out my website because they talk about how they are, a million miler with American, and they work at a high growth tech company, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just really cool. Like this came inbound, and this client ended up being worth about $20 million. So huge client in a different time zone. I've never met them in person. Okay. So just really cool example of what's possible. And then the example on the right is just like one of the ways I used to, and I don't even do this anymore, by the way. Like for my RIA, I'm not actually even taking on new clients at this point, even though I get new solicitations almost every single day. Is like how I actually initiate some conversations with people when I'm being a little bit more direct and thoughtful about who I actually want to work with. And you can see here again that the dialogue worked out really well. They wanted to learn more, and we actually ended up having a meeting. So this stuff does work, but it is the long game.
So that first message at the top is you proactively reaching out to this Brian gentleman.
Exactly.
And then that's sort of the responses. And before I switch gears a little, when you were using this strategy, how did you go about choosing someone like Brian? Like, what was the factor that made you reach out to him?
I knew who my ideal client was, who I was targeting. And that's one of the things I love about LinkedIn is that like once you define who that ideal client is, you can get pretty creative in searching for these types of folks and then just specifically reaching out to them. And as I even say here, like, listen, I'm not even going to sell you anything. I just want to connect. I have good content. I hope you like it. I hope it resonates with you, and the rest takes care of itself. So it wasn't just a random person like, that sometimes LinkedIn recommends, hey, you should connect with so-and-so. No, it's very thoughtful, very strategic on knowing who I wanted to work with and then targeting those folks.
So this wasn't someone you were already connected to. This was somebody who was like a second or a third degree connection. You sent them this note with your connection request, and not only did they accept it, but they wanted to learn more about how you worked with.
Exactly.
people.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. That's exactly right. Between my bio and what I had at the time for my tagline under my name, they're able to tell in about 5 seconds what I do and who I do it for. So clearly it worked. And yeah, they were a second or third connection. I can't remember.
Okay, awesome. So switching gears a little bit, Thomas, this was something you just posted on Twitter. And again, we're going to get into the nitty gritty for both of you of sort of like what your strategy is and how you use these platforms. But I wanted to start with these proof points just so that everybody wasn't signing on saying, why should we listen to these people? This is why, because they've made it work for them. So Thomas, tell us a little bit about this that you shared just recently.
I guess like even before going to that little backstory is that like I started a broker dealer, probably like many people, and I just had like this horrible taste in my mouth to like how to get clients. It was one of those places that's like, hey, you went to a wedding this weekend. What are the 12 leads that you have from this? And then it's call them. It was like literally day one of being there was call 200 people that like, I was like high school people I played basketball with, and like basically try to convince them to have a meeting, sit down in a meeting, pull out a packet and just start selling. And I just absolutely hated that idea. And I've always kind of had this quote, but everybody always told me like how valuable financial planning was. And my belief is like, if financial planning is so valuable, why am I selling it versus attracting people who need it? And so like my thought is the best way to do that is to share your education for free. And Samantha kind of put this in my mind, I think 2.5 years ago, of like the give, then ask. And yeah. I've honestly taken that a step further, and I don't ask. I just continue to give. And the only thing I'll ever get is an email from somebody and throw them in our newsletter and still never ask.
Yeah. Sorry. I think I should have
Yeah.
was never clear on that. The ask should be for their email so that you can then deliver even more hyper personalized content. Not
exactly.
Give, then, hey, do you want to buy this?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of the philosophy that I've taken. And so over the last like 2.5 years, I was just like, let's build up content. Let's, start with the blog. Let's get good at that. Let's add a newsletter. Let's add a podcast. Let's do all that. And I kind of followed everybody's model of use LinkedIn. LinkedIn works, and LinkedIn does work. And it's definitely different for per audience. But then I just started to realize that like, I live on Twitter. I learn from Twitter. probably a lot of people similar to me are going to live on Twitter, young, 20s, 30s business owners, people who work at Meta and Google and all these places. Like that's where they're going to live and that's where they want to learn. And so I made a huge shift to saying like, I'm just going to use Twitter. It's going to be my main focus. And whatever does well, I'll repurpose to other platforms. And this was one of my most recent months. And, last year I didn't focus on Twitter. I just started this year in January on Twitter. And last year I did 1.8 million impressions. And this year I'll do about 12 million. And again, like, I think there's always the argument, like, do impressions matter? And I can say no, but at the end of the day, if 12 million eyes see my content a year, I believe there's no shot I don't get at least 2 clients a month. Like that's such a low conversion rate. And I just was always told to like focus on quality and only quality. And I think that's a really great model for Morgan Housel, who can just put out the best possible things and people are going to wait months until the next thing drops. But how I believe marketing works in our industry is you're going to talk to people and they're going to not want to work with you until they hit their pain point. And so my job is I'm going to educate you and put things in front of you over and over and over and over and over again. And then when you take a new job at Meta and you have a bunch of equity comp, you're like, wait, Thomas knows about that. He knows about how to handle equity comp. He's never asked for anything from me before. I should probably reach out to him. I already know he's a subject matter expert in that space. And that's just the model that I continue to do. And it's the whole way we grow our business.
I love that. And we already are getting some good questions in. So let's take a few before we kind of look at some of the strategies that have worked well. So let's start with, since you're already talking, Thomas, let's start with the way that you have approached your Twitter. So Michael Hendrickson asked, what does your day-to-day on Twitter look like? How long do you spend? Are you scheduling posts, and how many posts are you sharing? So I'm going to actually, oops, that's not what I meant to do. You guys don't want to see my really super messy background there. While you go ahead and answer that, I'm going to pull up your Twitter and kind of scroll through it so people can see.
Okay. I would say, like, I always tell people to start small and build from there. I mean, it's like, if you look at how much marketing I'm doing at this point, you would think it would be 40 hours a week. But what happened is I dedicated 5 hours a week to social media in the beginning, and I still have about 5 hours a week. I can just do about 10 times as much because I've built the muscle and got good at it. So like in the very beginning, I had a blog post a week, and I would post 3 times a week on Twitter and 3 times a week on LinkedIn. And I've escalated that to every day on LinkedIn. And then on Twitter, I have 3 scheduled tweets a day that I use old content that works pretty well. I do new things that I think of. I go to my old blog posts or newsletters and pull points from it. And then throughout that way, if I'm really busy, I still am active. But then if I have free time and thoughts come to my head, I go and tweet. So I would say on average, I probably do 6 or 7 original tweets a day. And then I just run with that. Whatever does well, like let's say yesterday, whatever tweet did really well, I just pull that over and that's my post on LinkedIn the next day. My thought is if it did well and people liked it and engaged with it on Twitter, the same thing's going to happen on LinkedIn. So I try not to recreate the wheel. I post old content that's done well. And I mean, the picture she showed, I had 730 or something like that new followers that month. None of them have seen any of my old content. Most of your followers don't see every post as well. So like re-putting out things that did well, maybe editing it a little bit and just changing it some is just the approach that I've taken, again, because my job is to stay active. And Samantha put this in my mind maybe a year or 2 ago that like, the more people see you and hear from you, the more they start to like you. And if I just continue to educate people and try to just like only focus on that, I feel like people are just going to be more keen to, hey, he does a lot. He's super nice. He gives away a bunch. That's somebody I'd like to work with.
I love that answer. And everyone hopefully can see right here, you can see when someone retweets their own content. So one of the strategies I like to tell everybody is go back every like quarter even. And Thomas, I think you use a tool for this, but yeah. I just do it manually. I'll go back and look at what was some of my best performing social media posts, and I repost them to exactly to your point. If I picked up New followers, they didn't see it. The followers that I do have may not have been active on Twitter or LinkedIn at the time that I posted it originally. And even if they did see it, what is the chance of all the content we all see every day that you remembered it so well that you're going to say to somebody like, oh, I already saw that, right?
And if they did, you win. Like I always tell people, like, what if somebody sees and they remember that post? And it's like, if they remember your post after the thousands of things they read per day, months later, your content's winning. And that's like the best thing that possibly could happen.
Yeah. And I just want to point out one more thing, and then I'm going to pull up Derek's LinkedIn to kind of show some things there. But Thomas, I think, one of the things that people are noticing, and I'm seeing it come in the questions, is you're not posting links to articles, right? These are
Never.
all like standalone, easy, digestible, quick hitting tips or commentary about financial planning, about personal finance. And can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, did you ever try posting links? Is there a
Yeah.
reason why you use this strategy?
Yeah, I started where I would post my link to my blog posts when I would release them, and it would literally get like, a good one would get like 3 likes at most. So obviously they're demoting that. I mean, it makes sense. Their goal is to keep people on social media. They don't want any links that are taking them off. So then I saw a bunch of other creators, like they would turn their blog posts into threads. So then I started to do that, and then like that started to blow up. But then also I did a month in February where every day I wrote a new thread. And then I was like, well, why am I not just turning my threads also into blog posts? And I think they're like Twitter. I don't ever post links. I also, one mistake, I see financial advisors all the time will be like, they'll get quoted in the media and they'll be like, check out my article on retirement. It's like, nobody's going to read that. Nobody's clicking on that link. You didn't say anything interesting. Like, I'm sure they saw that you were in something, but you didn't get anybody to read it. So it didn't really validate anything. So my thought is, even if you post a link, which again, on Twitter, I don't really recommend it, but you still, like, the hook is what's most important. So, I mean, like all of these posts as well, like I've written about them in a blog post or somewhere else that like somebody could go find. And if there was one that we were talking about before that showed like raw or 401k to the match, Roth IRA, HSA, whatever. Like I have a steps to getting started on your finances blog post that if somebody asked for it, I could send them to, because I do think that it's hard to search social and find old posts. But I don't think that, like, even though I write the blog, I still am just going to post, cut it up into like 10 tweets, have one thread about it, et cetera, and never post that link.
Yeah.
We have links.
So-
We have these, and my own personal website has a bunch.
So just to kind of recap for everybody following along, what he's talking about and what we really suggest you do is, it doesn't matter kind of where you're getting the content. If you find a great CNBC article and you want to summarize the main takeaways from that article, if you have a great piece that is on your website and you want to summarize the main points, it's the way you deliver it. We're moving away from making people click off these platforms to go read the article somewhere to a world in what we call 0-click content. And so that is where the giveaway, the takeaway is right there on the platform, and you don't need to click off to go get the gist of it.
And
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
one thing I was gonna add is somebody asked a question about YouTube. And this is another thing I see people do, is that like they'll create this great YouTube video and they'll just throw the link with a couple words on Twitter. Again, nobody is going to leave to watch that without really knowing. And so the way to get people to your YouTube is you make a little highlight video of 30 to 60 seconds of a main point where they're like, ooh, I want to learn more about that. Now I'm going to go click. But you, like, whether it's videos or anything to draw them off with at least some way to grab their attention is never going to work.
Yeah. Okay, so we have more Twitter questions. We're going to come back to that. But Derek, I want to get to you. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here and talk about LinkedIn. And one thing I want you all to keep in mind, I'm seeing some questions of like, hey, I'm targeting the 50 and over market, which I know is vast, but what platform should I be on? What kind of content would that group want? I'd love to get your thoughts, Derek, on that, and specifically on LinkedIn, because I think a lot of people think, LinkedIn is more for older people per se, but at the same time, it really is for people that are in their working years, wouldn't you say? Not so much for people that are already retired.
Oh, no question. Yeah, there's some stats out there you can Google. I posted it about a year ago, and I don't know what's changed since then, but a huge population on LinkedIn. They are pushing 900 million users now globally. So absolutely massive. And very diverse, and from a lot of different ways. So no, I love it. It's definitely where I've doubled down, and you can get very strategic on who you want to target, where you want to target them from, geographic location, what companies they work at, and so forth, and
Yeah.
then just go after it. So
And
clearly,
so-
like I'm now more marketing towards financial professionals, but the principles apply exactly the same to if you're trying to grow your financial advisory business. It's no different.
And so like in this example here, you are sharing a link, but rather than just say, hey, this is an interesting article on remote work, or, a new piece about remote work, you're summarizing the key points. You're creating a conversation about, a controversial topic. What are people talking about? So can you talk a little bit about, for LinkedIn, how many times a day are you posting, and are you planning it out in advance? And do you post links, or is it standalone pieces? Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm only posting once a day for the most part, 4 to 5 times a week.
Okay.
So not posting. I have found that if I post twice in a day, the first post will be suppressed. So LinkedIn's algorithm will take a look at your content. Will say, well, you just posted this other thing. Which one's more important? And it's only going to choose to pick one. So you have to be aware of that. And so for me, most of my posts tend to be long form writing. And as you can see here, I will add a picture from time to time, or a link out if it makes sense. And I've confirmed this with LinkedIn. If the link is of value and you summarize, like you just pointed out, you will not be penalized for posting that stuff out. And for example, that one right there, that actually got picked up by LinkedIn's editorial news team, and they featured it. We all get those alerts. So-and-so's post was featured by the LinkedIn news team, and this one was featured.
So is that because you use this LinkedIn trending topics hashtag, would you say?
It definitely helps. Yep. But pick the hashtags that are relevant to what you're talking about, but don't throw 400 hashtags in there. 3 or 4 is all you need. Another best practice is don't tag people in a post if there's a high likelihood they will not engage with that post. Yeah, I mean, for me, I just love the long form content, but even Adam and I joke about this on our podcast. You want to have a little bit of controversy in your posts, because at the end of the day, you want to drive dialogue. When I say controversy, like be respectful, be polite, have fun, but put a little bit of a stake in the sand and say like, hey, like, here's what I think on this. What do you think? And it tends to drive a lot of conversation. Conversation's good. That promotes your posts even more. And I didn't send you my thing, but my posts have been viewed over 2 million times, over 500,000 times in the last 90 days. So it does really work. And then it just goes down that funnel.
Okay, great. So I'm looking at some more questions. Derek, Christy Puckett wants to know, what is the tool that you're using to target specific folks on LinkedIn? Is it just LinkedIn itself, or is there another tool you're using?
It's just LinkedIn itself. Now I do pay for premium, and part of that's by accident. I keep forgetting to renew it every year because I only pay for it annually. And I see the bill, I'm like, oh shoot, I guess I've got this for another year. But you don't have to have premium, although it does help. But yeah, I mean, if you really define who your ideal client is, then you know where they work, you'll know what industry they're in, you'll know what geographic region they're in, and then you can define all that and start attracting them, but also posting content that's relative to that space. And again, that's hence the use of the hashtags. People.
So really, you're just going into the where is it? What I don't even remember how to start because I don't do it. Under search, are you just
search? Like just you could go into search, and then you could just do like, you could search anything just to get it pulled up. And then you could search like Meta, right? If you want to go after people that are at Facebook. And then all of these additional search features you can see here will pop up at the top. All right, so I want to look for people. Okay, great. Let's further refine that. Where are they a second connection only? Where do they live? What company did they work at? So you could do that, right here.
There's
so
also
location, you could just do United States or San Francisco if you really want to get super local.
Sorry, Thomas, what were you saying?
There's automation tools to do this for you too. So you can combine automation tools with Sales Navigator, and it'll create lists for you, and they'll send all of the connections, and you can even you can auto create messaging, which I'm super anti. I feel like it's really salesy and there's
Yeah.
too many errors that come about. Like the amount of time people that I know message me with automated messaging, and I'm like, this makes you look bad. Like now I know that you're just spamming. But I think there are good tools where they'll like, hey, you want realtors in Chicago, and it'll add the max amount of connections it can per day, per week to try to help you build your following. That is another way to do this.
One tip that I have found too, I don't know if either of you've used this. Let's say I get a connection request here from Dustin and I go ahead and accept. It's going to show me Dustin's connections you may know, right? So that he's a financial advisor. It could be other financial advisors. And then I can go ahead and invite them. So when I was really trying to grow my own LinkedIn following,
Yeah.
I would do this, spend time every night while I was like watching TV. I'd click, connect. And then I'd go through and like, okay, here, me and JP, we have 237 mutual connections. We know a lot of the same people. I'm going to go ahead and just click connect. I'm not even sending a message with it. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that has worked for me to grow to about 30,000 followers. But I definitely had a proactive approach. Like I would send, maybe 25, 30 of them every evening over the course of the week. Derek, what about you? Because I know you're just about at 30,000 connections as well.
Yeah, initially I was that guy sending the cold, spammy, automated messages, and very quickly found out that was a really
The
bad.
one that Thomas was just talking about.
Yeah, and I found out very quickly, like, don't do that for a number of reasons. It didn't work. So then what I ended up doing, I did a little bit of what you were doing, but then I was like, I'm going to start creating content. And what ended up happening is people started actually just wanting to connect and follow with me.
Yep.
So I just started being more and more active there. And, I'm gaining followers every day that way. And I think honestly, that was probably the biggest driver of growth for me, was just creating content. And turn on your, what's it called? Creator mode.
Creator mode. I was just
Most
going
of
to
you guys should have that now. And that way your connect button turns to a follow button. So it's much faster to grow your following that way. I will still connect with people. And I'll send connection requests, but it's more strategic. And a little thing I do is I always make it a point to go look at their profile first, partly to vet, but also to say like, hey, like I'm interested enough to actually look at your bio before sending a connection request.
Yeah. And that creator mode also will give you this little bell, right? So you can get notified whenever you can tell people, hey, click the bell and you'll be notified whenever I post. Thomas, I cut you off. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. No, I think that like DMs can get really spammy, and we're in an industry where like advisors already look down upon for being salesmen. And I think the way that Derek made the shift, and when you showed that message of, hey, we just recently connected, like let's say you do the realtor idea and be like, hey, I wrote a guide for how realtors should manage their cash flow and taxes. Like I thought this would be helpful for you. Like that's the way to use DMs, is give people free value. And he basically did that in a really authentic way. And so he was like, oh, I'm actually interested in working with you because you're not the other 10 advisors who have literally said like, hey, I think we should meet. I have a product that would be great for you. They're like, that's annoying. Like you're sending that to everybody, versus, hey, let me give you some free value, and that might attract you to me. And if not, I gave you free value, and that's great too.
Exactly.
Such a good point. Okay, so going back to just some of the tools. So Derek, you're not really using any other tools in terms of growing your following. It sounds like, is that right?
I have in the past. I've used free tools. I've paid for tools. And due to my experience with them, I decided not to. And also, so I've got some contacts within LinkedIn now, and they've made it pretty clear, like, yeah, don't do that. They don't like it.
Okay.
So yeah, for a number of reasons, I don't do that anymore.
Okay, good to know. And while we're on that topic, somebody was asking tool wise about creator mode. So if you go to your profile so that you're on your own page, if you hover over any section, there's these little editing tools, and you can see there how to edit different sections. So like this featured section, you can take any post that is done really well, or that you would love people to be able to see when they land on your page, and make it part of your featured section, right? So you click that little edit button, and you can choose what you want to be featured. You can add a post, a newsletter, an article, a link, a picture. That's a really great tactic because, of course, you're driving people to your page and you want to highlight certain things. The creator mode is also there. So you'll be able to turn it on or off right here under this resources section on your page. So that's where you want to go in order to turn creator mode on. Thomas, let's look at your LinkedIn. And I know you're more active on Twitter, and we'll get back to some other tips on Twitter, but can you tell us a little bit about, you mentioned before, you still post to LinkedIn regularly. So what are you posting here?
Yeah, so I just I think Twitter is more of an area where you can throw thoughts often. Like it's not like, hey, I have to have one post a day. So I put a bunch of stuff on Twitter and then it's like, ooh, something did well yesterday on Twitter. That's right here. This was a tweet that I put out that had over 30 likes maybe 2 days ago. And so I was like, why wouldn't I add that? And then I added a little bit extra wording to it because I have more character limit. But that's really how I use it. I don't on any platform go add connections or follow people, not because I don't think it's right. I think it's boring. And so for some reason, I don't do it. And naturally, I've built a following this way. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think when I first started, I added people for sure. And I would send them hey, I have a newsletter that's free to millennials and it has this download. If you want to join, here it is. But then really quickly, I just stopped doing it. And, if I had I have an assistant starting, if she had free time, I would kind of honestly tell her to do that because why not? But I basically just post to here and let people like and comment. And I saw a question in there, how do you convert people from Twitter or LinkedIn? And I think this might surprise people, but I think this year I've had about 70 new prospects from Twitter and LinkedIn, but 95% from Twitter. Not one of them I've ever messaged with. They literally just go to my profile right there. They click on this and then they click on book a meeting and then they show up to the meeting. And that's the whole process.
So you're not even talking to them before, and
No.
they just literally book the meeting and then they show up that day and you're having the conversation.
And I've never seen their name on Twitter or anything. I'll have the occasional person who'll be like, hey, I really want to work with you, but I'm moving and buying a house in the next 2 months. When that ends, I'm going to book a meeting. And I'm like, great. But other than that's very rare. Other than that, I've never heard it or seen a single name of any of my prospects pop up before I meet with them.
Okay. So remember, your profile is the place people are going to go. So what you link to is important. And, you can send them directly to a meeting calendar. You can do what Thomas does here, where he's got, multiple things. They can book a meeting. They can go to the newsletter. They can go to the website. Lots of different options. But I think that that's a really good point, is that in all of these scenarios, none of the messages are sales, and nothing what you're posting is really saying if you work with me, I can do this, or I work with the people that need help with this. You're just leading with helpful information. And Thomas, again, I think the interesting thing about your strategy on Twitter is that the information that you're giving, I think other advisors looking at it might say this is pretty basic stuff. It's not super high level. And people might be pretty floored, I think, by that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really mind that. But if you think about I think advisors, if you look at most advisors that create content and don't get clients, it's because their writing is to other advisors. It's using acronyms only we use in the industry. It's going into too much detail. And with how limited a characters you can have on Twitter, unless it's a thread, I can't get really into the nitty gritty. And it's funny, in the last 2 weeks, I've gotten probably 2 of my best clients ever, all from Twitter, without posting high in the weeds stuff. And what they always say is that they can tell from mine that I like to educate people and I can make things simple. And the average person I sit down with is really high income or running an awesome business, and they know nothing about personal finances. So the more complex I get, the more I push people away, because if somebody has to read my post and Google a word because they don't know it, they're on to the next post. And so I always tell people, I'm going to make it as basic as possible. I'm going to educate people on core principles that are really important to them. And the average person, I'll have a new client come in that makes $1 million a year, works at Meta, and they have no idea about a backdoor Roth. Why am I going to sit in the weeds and talk about AMT of exercising, options, and all these things? They don't even know what to think about that. They don't even know if they have options. They just know they have equity comp. And so I can't go too far into the weeds or I'll push people away.
So, and I do think that the type of content that performs really well on Twitter is vastly different than LinkedIn. So Derek, on LinkedIn, what kind of content are you finding is performing best for you?
Stories. Stories tend to work really, really well that can relate to people, but also right to Thomas's point, don't get technical. Part of like the magic, I think, and the value of advisors at large is that advisors are able or should be able to break down the complex into simple terms and make it understandable for people, right? And so whatever we're doing, do that. So some personal posts also, that you can put in from time to time makes a nice difference, because at the end of the day, people connect with other human beings.
Yeah.
So, let people see a personal side with you, and it's okay to start to try to tie that back into business and on some level, but don't get crazy technical on it.
One
And
thing
so
I'll also, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, for you, when somebody lands on your page, you're really trying to drive them to this ebook is the
Exactly. At this point, that's what I'm doing. That's a newer feature. So it goes straight there. And I can tell you, I've had a bunch of downloads already just since we've been on this webinar, right? Every day I keep getting that. So that's how I grow my email list. Like this is, if we talk about a sales funnel, this is part of it, right? Okay. They liked my content. Maybe they've been looking at my content for 6 months and they're a lurker. Eventually, like, okay, he hit a pain point. I'm ready to make a decision. Boom. Now what? Oh, okay. Oh, I should go do this now. Okay, cool. Now what? And it just leads them down that path.
I think 2 points on that. One that you made is knowing your sales funnel is so important, because like if the way that you are converting and you see this numbers wise is people go to my profile, they go to my newsletter, they sit in my newsletter for a couple months, then they convert. Everything you should be doing should be trying to feed to that. For me, my funnel is I have a newsletter and we have plenty of people on it, but we don't convert people from there. Our conversion comes from Twitter. So like everything I try to do is drive people to my content and staying on there. And if they want to ask me questions in my DMs, I do it. But I don't over post about my newsletter or my giveaways because it hasn't been our most valuable way of getting clients. But Derek's might be. And so that completely makes sense. And that's where it's like, you have to keep trying new things. Like in the beginning, I really thought it would be my newsletter. And then I thought it'd be LinkedIn. And now it's really been Twitter. And I just keep pivoting as finding things that work. And you just have to be willing to try those new things. Other thing I was going to say is we don't post about the work we do too much, but we still post about it. And that's what I think is I found, I was talking with Rachel Camp this week. She's a new account on Twitter. Like I talked to her maybe 8 months ago and pushed her to start in social media. She has like 6,000 followers in maybe like 6 months. She's killing it. And the one thing that she's noticed that when we last talked about is that people aren't reaching out to her because they don't know that's what she does. So you don't have to try to drive people to you, but you have to at least tell people, here's what we do. Here's like how we work with clients. Here's our structures. Here's who I do my best work for without being salesy. So people know. It's the same idea of like telling your clients that, hey, I'm taking new clients. If you have any friends or family that you'd like to work with us, like I'd be totally willing to reserve a spot for them. Whatever wording you use is that not everybody knows you're taking clients or what you're doing. Half of the profiles on social media are just talking heads about finance that have never worked with clients, and they sell a course or something. Nothing wrong with that, but most accounts aren't advisors.
And I think you do a really good job of giving the advice, but then saying something like, many of the clients we work with make the mistake of X. So people are understanding that or many of the millennial clients we work with, right? So you're making it clear you work with clients, the type of clients you work with are also often millennials, and then you still give that value away. Somebody asked about how you see analytics. So if you have Twitter, if you just go to your profile page and then under more, you can get your analytics right there. So that,
I didn't know that. I've always just Googled Twitter analytics and it pulled me there. I didn't know that there was actually a spot for that.
We're all learning something new today. I love it.
Yeah.
You guys are teaching me new things and everybody here's listening. So yeah, under Creator Studio, you can get your analytics there and it will give you all of the information. I can just pull it up for you guys. My analytics are kind of bad right now because I have not been tweeting as much. But so it'll tell you, like how many profile visits, how many tweet impressions, and if it's up or down over the last 28-day period. So the main one I pay attention to is followers, and my follower count continues to grow month after month, but it'll also tell you like your top tweet, your top mention, your top media tweet. Those analytics are all available to you. And then in LinkedIn, you also get analytics on your page. And it will show you, your number of profile views, your post impressions. And if you click on these, you can look, over however much you want to see kind of like compare. and it will give you, those numbers. So I had a major viral post event right there, which is why that number spikes. But so I had 14 million people see my content in the last year, right? So this will kind of give you some of those numbers that you can look at. I'm getting a lot more. Will this recording be made available? Yes, we promise it will. You'll be able to come back to it. So a couple questions about, other platforms. So yes, I know you're both active on both LinkedIn and Twitter, but Derek, you've told me you've really made, your focus is LinkedIn, and Thomas, your focus is really Twitter. Got some questions from people asking about Meta or or Facebook. Have either of you tried it? Do you know any advisors that are finding success there?
So I do paid advertising on, I'm sorry, I got to call it Facebook still.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
I'm sorry, I can't help it. But yeah, so I do paid advertising there. I tried paid advertising on LinkedIn as well. And turns out that LinkedIn was a lot better for organic content. LinkedIn is pretty expensive from a paid ads perspective, although you can get pretty laser focused on who you want to target. Facebook has been a lot less expensive to do the same types of things. So I have been doing that. And I think over the last 12 months, it's been, I know our paid ads got like 1.6 million impressions, something like that. So we're not spending a ton of money on it, but just something to try there. Organically, I have not had a lot of luck on LinkedIn, but I have not given it the time that I do on Facebook. I have not given it the time that I have on LinkedIn at all.
Okay. And what about you, Thomas?
I would say, well, first, just kind of going off that, like, I think that you can do social media marketing with $0 spent. I think, like, especially if you're getting started, like, I think Derek being farther along and having dollars to invest in it is good. But I think when I talk to a lot of people, they think that dollars invested is going to lead to better results. But at the end of the day, it's still content, and you still have to have really good content. It could maybe get a couple more eyes on it early, or a couple more subscribers to your newsletter, and it might be worth it. But like, if you don't know anything about ads, you're probably going to fail and spend a bunch of money for the first while figuring it out. So you might as well outsource it. But I've seen other advisors use it well. Like, I've seen some people on Instagram use it well. The reason why I don't like it is because you have to come up with a lot of visually good looking content, which takes way longer than writing a tweet. I think there's like I work with millennial travelers that might work for, or like I've heard nurses and some of, other people that works well. I know people who do Facebook well. A lot of it is like, I think Andy Panko might be one where he has like an entire group. Andy Panko, isn't that his name?
Yeah. He works with widows, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. And so like, I think the older the audience you go, Facebook might work, but I just feel like Facebook is harder to really get eyes on. If you look at LinkedIn and Twitter, like the reach is so much larger because of comments and retweets, where Facebook is not as much. So, I mean, I think I've seen people do it well, but like LinkedIn is definitely where I've seen the most people find success with it.
So a couple questions people have gotten about like the actual structure of post images versus not. So let's start with LinkedIn, because again, there's difference. One of the trends we're seeing a lot of people do are these LinkedIn posts where they either have native videos. So if you don't know Stacy, she's a great person to follow on LinkedIn. She posts every day. She has great information. She does a lot of these like walk on the beach and tell a quick story. It's like her signature thing that she does. But then she also does these types of, you can scroll through, and she gives you these takeaways. So LinkedIn started allowing people to have these scrolling carousel images not that long ago, that make it, before you had to upload a PDF. But one of the things you'll see a lot of people doing on LinkedIn now is just having a picture of themselves along with their post. So whereas when we were looking at, Thomas before, he had a lot of those takeaways with no image, nothing to go alongside it. It was just the takeaway on its own. We find that those get the most retweets, right? Like those types of standalone things, there's no picture, nothing with it. Those get retweets a lot. On LinkedIn, the algorithm seems to really like right now people having a picture along with the post. What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen?
I don't know, to be honest. Like I totally see this and I see it working. I don't know if I can post pictures of myself nonstop with things. So I don't know if it would really be like my structure of making it work. I think what makes hers work really well is everything's different. And so it doesn't feel stale that like she's sprinkling, which would I try to do like Monday, I post like a quick little video of the, the YouTube video we posted. Tuesday, I have words. Wednesday, I have a blog post and I'll have a picture with it. Thursday, I'll have words. Friday, I'll have a video with my podcast. So like every day is different and I still have something there where it isn't boring.
Yep.
And I think that's the thing that's important. And I think also what she does, and we haven't talked about, is like spacing and wording is so important. Samantha always talks about like how people scan and how they look at things. And like, I find so many advisors, they'll post like 4 paragraphs on like a post. And it's like, nobody reads paragraphs. Nobody really even reads punctuation. So if you look at mine, unless it's a question or something, there's no periods, there's double spacing, there's emojis, there's way to break it up so people read it. And like, I think go look at other accounts that you like and don't like and say like, what do I like about it? Oh, their spacing's good. They have pictures. Then go look at somebody you're like, you don't like, you're like, oh, this is just stale. It's all words, it's paragraphs. Like, nobody's going to read it like that. I don't want to do that. And then you'll start to realize like, here's how I create content because this is what I like. And the easiest way to create is based on what you like yourself.
So Jeff Moore in the comments just said, Stacy also does an awesome job responding to other people's posts with comments, engaging. And I wanted to point something out that we were talking about offline before this, which was there was this, it's not a very scientific approach, but this gentleman, he went and looked at some of the largest accounts on social media and looked at how often they were posting versus how often they were replying to other people's posts, right? And it was a crazy number. So, you look at some of these big accounts, the total amount of time that they're pushing their own pieces out versus replying, the replies make up like 90% or more of the activity. And, I don't know if anybody here has used this strategy before, Derek or Thomas, if you've seen it work for you, but like on LinkedIn, they say, before you go and post something, go leave comments and engage with a bunch of other people right before you get your post up. And the algorithm will know you're being active and it'll pull it.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to even be that systematic. What I just find is that I have this rule, which I've shared a million times, which is for every, one thing that you post, engage with at least 5 other people's posts in a meaningful way, leave comments, leave replies. And that number may be a lot higher. The higher, the better, probably 10, 15 comments for everyone. But I think 5 to 1 feels at least doable for people. And you will be shocked by how much growth that you see and how many people start to leave comments on your post then because of that reciprocity that we all feel. And if you've never commented on a stranger's post before, you're doing social media wrong, right? You're never going to expand your network if you don't go and start conversations with new people in the room that is social media.
But I think adding to that is commenting on the right people's posts. Like, I know that there's a lot of engagement groups that exist on social media of like, hey, you post and I'll like yours and comment and you like mine. And even that strategy, like I know of a group of like 5 advisors that do that with each other. It's like, you're basically just pushing to each other's audiences versus pushing to your ideal client's audience. And so like, Samantha, you do this well. Nikki, who works with you, does this well. Like, you guys comment on advisors' posts. You're not always sitting there commenting on other people who creates websites for advisors' posts. And advisors should do that same thing. Hey, I work with retirees. I'm finding all these people talking about stuff. Like, what can I go add in and talk about with them that shows up in their audience of consumed by the same type of audience that you want?
Right.
Know your market. Know your market. I suspect that there's some people on this webinar that will be watching that have compliance to worry about. And they'll be like, well, what about compliance? I can't comment, or I can only have these 3 predefined comments that I can use. So, I mean, that can be a challenge, but you can still use those, but also for your own content. So I come from one of the most conservative compliance backgrounds in the industry. I was at a large insurance broker dealer for many years. So I know exactly what any of you that are in that are going through. And what I was able to find out through them working with my compliance department is if you're writing more personalized stuff, if you're not writing about what, this investment or this product can do, and you're talking more about general concepts, ideas, personal stories, all of a sudden compliance doesn't care anymore. You still have to archive it, right? You still have to do that stuff. That's just a simple rule. But now all of a sudden you can open up this really great conversation with people and not have to be worried about not being able to say or do something.
It's such a good point. We got a couple more questions that I just want to address. A couple questions about video, because video can perform really well. I just wanted to show this tool. I just found this tool recently. I don't, not like getting paid to promote this tool or anything. I just happen to love it. It is called Veed, and you can come in here and upload your video and then edit the video like right within this tool. And for most of you, you don't need to do a lot of editing. You might need to cut the beginning and the end off, but a lot of you want to add subtitles, right? And so it's really easy to add subtitles using this tool. And like probably the easiest subtitle tool I've ever used. And it makes it really easy to go ahead and add some text above your video here. And then when you go and you share them on social media, you can upload the same video, let's say to YouTube, like we talked about, but then make a short clip in this tool to post, to social media. So if video is something you're interested in, highly suggest you check out Veed. How about you, Thomas? I know you make quite a bit of video. What do you like to use?
So to be honest, I use Veed when I do. For a while, one of my clients owns a company that does video. And so they put me for free in their program to give them like reviews and feedback. So for like months, they made all of my short videos. And then Trayton makes most of ours, and he does it all inside Veed as well. It's just too easy. It's so quick. Like you can throw something, like I made 2 in the last couple of weeks, and it maybe took me 10 minutes each time. And the hard part is like, what part of the video do you want to cut, and finding the time. After that, it's super quick.
Yeah, definitely agree. What about you, Derek?
I don't use video as much. When I do though, like I've used Loom sometimes, or just even on my phone and trim it up that way. I had an advisor ask me just recently about this, like, should I spend all the time to really edit it and do all of these things, or should I just get something out there? And I'm always of the opinion, 70% of the way out the door. Like, that's it. Like, as long as you can get something 70% to finish, because you'll never get 100%, then just post it. So
yeah,
I'm a fan of the more granular, more, I guess, gritty videos when I do them, and they tend to perform pretty well. Although it's really hard to argue with, like, I mean, Sam, your examples are pretty stellar. I mean, and clearly they're working. So,
but she's a marketing company. Like, she's
right?
somebody to go work for to do marketing.
Exactly.
Versus our job is to just give information to advisors. And that's where, like, I feel like one of the biggest mistakes advisors have is they try to be perfect in their content. And I think what's helped me be good is that, like, I just accept that 80% good is what should get posted, because the time to get to 80% is about, half of the time. To get 80 to 100 is the other half. Most people aren't reading or watching or noticing enough for that to make any difference. That's my strategy.
Such a good point. Well, we've had a couple questions. This is being hosted by FMG Suite. Can you show us some of the things about what FMG does for social and how we can use that tool? So I just wanted to point out, if you are with FMG, if you're not, this will just take a minute or two to show. But if you go into the content library, you can filter by all kinds of content: email content, web content, social posts. What a lot of people don't realize is you can use this just as a social media scheduling tool without using the content we provide. So if you have a great Canva image, for instance, we haven't really talked about Canva, I don't think, but you can make awesome visuals for free using Canva. You can come in here, upload your image, create your post, and post it. But if you want to use something we have, you can click on the post. So you can see here, we've already made a visual for you. You can use the post, but then you can come in and put whatever you want. So you'll see your character limit here. Because I have both LinkedIn and Twitter turned on, it is telling me I can't use more than 280 characters because I have Twitter selected. But if I deselect Twitter, right, now, because it's only LinkedIn, I can go ahead and write those long form posts out here like we see people doing on LinkedIn. So if I want people to know, FAFSA is time coming, whatever I want to say, the great thing is you will see it right here in real time. So you can see what it's going to look like as you post it. If you have an image you want to use, you can come up here and click upload image. We have a direct integration with Canva, which I love. So if you click on Canva, it will allow you to log into your account. And then any Canva is a free tool for creating images. I should have said that in the beginning. Any images that you have in your Canva account, you can go ahead and just design. Then you can also, once you're ready, schedule the post out. So you can either share it right away or schedule it for the future. So Thomas talked about earlier, scheduling a few posts out in advance for Twitter. this is exactly how you can do that using FMG. So again, whether you want to use stuff that we already have ready to go and just add your own flair to it, or you want to go completely from scratch, this is where you would do that. So hopefully that helps answer the question. And then from a compliance standpoint, everything you do through the FMG dashboard like this is going to be archived for compliance. So that is a huge benefit of doing it this way. Okay. Can we do another hour? This is great stuff. Best
Love
comment.
it. That's awesome.
This session. I know the hour is going by really, really fast. So I think one of the questions that came in that I did want to get to is people want to know, you know, how do you, when somebody lands on your calendar and you don't know who they are, how do you then vet whether it's worth taking the time to meet with them? So maybe Thomas, I'll have you answer that first.
For like, how do I know if it's like they're a good person to meet with?
Yeah.
So I think that because of the way that most people check me out, they find me Twitter, they go to our company website, they look at what we do in our fees, and then they book a meeting. And because they've been following me for so long on social, they already know whether they want to work with me or not. It's whether they can afford and whether they'll find value with our fee structure. So like when people book a meeting with us, we have a questionnaire already that's like, how did you find us? What's your best and worst financial decision? Tell us a little bit about you. And they always kind of throw those things in there. So I come into most meetings knowing whether they're going to be a good fit or not. But like, I don't think I've had a prospect come in that wasn't really a good fit because all we talk about is the stuff that we do. And, you know, everybody knows that we only work with millennials. Like nobody that's 50 or over books a meeting with me because they know that's not who we work with. So it's really like, I'm going to sit down for 30 minutes and I don't take the approach like some advisors do the like, hey, let's look at your financials and let me tell you what I could do, improve value. I don't take that approach. I just, hey, tell me about you. What are you looking for? What's making you reach out to advisor? What does a good relationship look like? Do you want ongoing, blah, blah. Here's our process. Here's our deliverables. Here's our fee structure. Do you want to work with us or not? And that's just our whole process.
So
Keep it really basic.
I pulled up your page. Again, if you go to his page and then you click this link and you go to the schedule a meeting, this is what it shows. So once you choose your meeting block, you don't let them just book a time. They have to answer how they heard about you, why they're reaching out. I love that. What's your best and worst financial decision? And you actually, do you find, because we often know in marketing for every form field you add, your conversion rate goes down. So you're really vetting out only the people who
are
really
serious. Yeah. And sometimes I'll get advisors who book a meeting through there and they're like, I'm an advisor. I just, to be honest, cancel every one of those meetings. Cause I'm like, if you're going to be an advisor and try to get on my calendar to like talk to me as a free prospect, like that's kind of bogus. You should at least message me and ask for my time, but that rarely happens. And I think it does weed out people who aren't serious, but I also think minimum fee of $450 a month also weeds out anybody who isn't really serious about their finances.
Sure. Derek, I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Similar process, not as detailed as this. I really like this. And, I'm in the process to moving over to FMG. So it'd be really cool to incorporate this kind of stuff for my RIA side of things. But I have, how did you hear about us? And then when I get that email confirmation that there's been a meeting check, I will go troll them or lurk them on LinkedIn. Like, who is this person? Because every once in a while I get like the wholesaler that wants to meet with me, and I love some of the wholesalers I've met, but like as Thomas said, like, ask first, for stuff like that. Don't just try to sneak into my calendar. So you have to cherry pick it a little bit. And I don't have this problem as much anymore because I made it very clear on my website now that I am not taking new clients. So that's not happening anymore. But yeah.
Well, I think that you guys just cleared that up though. The more clear you are with your messaging and who you serve, the better it will go. Exactly. So just a few things as we wrap up here. Number one, if you are an FMG customer and you don't have our mobile app, it is amazing for social media. You will get notified. So like if Russia invades Ukraine and oil prices skyrocket and there's something we'll create little pieces of content that you can share on social media. You can add your own commentary about it, but it's great for sharing break news, sharing social posts to go. I don't know about the rest of you, but I often work from my phone. The mobile app is amazing. I highly suggest checking it out, and it's free for everybody to download if you have an FMG account. If you want to learn more about FMG and the tools that we have to make scheduling all your social posts and archiving it all for compliance a breeze, go to fmg.com, fmgsuite.com, and click this get a demo page, and then you can just sign up to learn more. To connect with Derek and Thomas. Thomas, what is the best way if people want to connect with you after? What would you like them to do?
I would say Twitter, obviously. Like I try to sprinkle in also stuff to help educate other advisors. So their LinkedIn works. I will say I get a bunch of advisors right now asking to like meet for one-on-ones, and I've tabled all of them because like I'm trying to do more of these things and talk to the masses, because I've gotten to the point where there's like 10 to 20 a week and I can't figure out who to say yes and no to. And I feel really bogus saying just randomly picking based on a message or a profile picture. And so I'm taking the Adam Kamela approach and trying to like put more of this out. And then when people reach out and say, here's the resources I have that talk about what I do and how I work and like things that might help you. But I always try to say that because after all these, I always have so many people reach out because the speaker says like, hey, he'll grab coffee with you. And I'm not trying to like push people away. I'm not trying to push people away. I just haven't found a good way to be able to do it. But besides doing these type of events.
Okay. And what about you, Derek?
Yeah, definitely LinkedIn. Follow me, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a DM. I just put that in there. Yeah, I think, it just got posted in the chat for everybody.
Awesome.
Same for Twitter for Thomas. So definitely go follow him. That's it. Like we're all in the same team at the end of the day, the way I see it. And if we can all help each other grow, we can help each other grow our practices. There's more than enough business out there. So, it's an abundance mindset. And if we can learn from each other, like I learned some things from Thomas today that I'm going to go implement after we're done talking.
I'm so glad.
same to you,
I'm so
man.
glad to hear that.
We can help each other.
And for all of you, if we're not connected already, please, Samantha C. Russell is my profile. I would love to connect with you. And if you have a question about any of these strategies or how to implement them, or you asked a question, it looks like we had almost 100 questions today, and I know,
Awesome.
or over 100, and we didn't get to all of them. So if you still want your question answered, you can just quickly message me. Oops, that's the wrong thing, on LinkedIn. I don't know why I'm searching in the wrong box here.
Sam's Club.
And while she's doing that, submit us as names for conferences for all of us to be on a panel and talk marketing. I think that'd be
Yes.
fun.
Oh, that would be cool. That would be fun.
That'd be
I'd do
super
that.
fun.
Yeah.
So there I am, and you can reach out to me there, and I'll answer any other questions that we didn't get to today. But really, I hope this was really helpful for all of you. We're putting these on to be helpful. So let us know if you like this and you want us to do more of it. Like Thomas said, we're game. And thank you both, Thomas and Derek, for sharing so many amazing insights today. I learned some new things, and it's obvious that so many other people did too.
Love it. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Awesome to be here with all of you today.
Yeah,
All
thanks,
right.
guys.